We're waiting for the off-white flip-flops. 2 police officers waiting for the off-white flip-flops. We'll call it the off-white flip-flop investigation.
This is Susan Bassi. A few months ago, I was recording on a public beach when this woman decided to call the Capitola police. 2 police officers came, and the entire beach seemed to get engaged in the process and the debate of the right to record in public. The police officers who showed up were each making over $135,000 a year. They decided to use their time to exercise their First Amendment rights and express their opinions and thoughts and ideas about recording in public. But nowhere did they ever inform Karen of the right to record in public and that calling the police for such things is a waste of public resources. Because the police like to continue to give the illusion of public safety even though that's not what they're doing.
I get it. Just trying to protect your children.
In case you missed it, this police officer continued to incite the conflict between Karen and the right to record. He said, "I get it. You're just trying to protect your children." He didn't say to her that everybody has a right to record in public, and this is not a public safety matter. He wasted over an hour of 2 police officers there that day, giving the illusion that law enforcement would work when we really need it as a matter of public safety.
You see some flip-flops? Off-white? Yes, I see right there.
We're waiting for the off-white flip-flops. 2 police officers waiting for the off-white flip-flops. We'll call it the off-white flip-flop investigation.
If you notice, just when the situation gets ridiculous, the police officer on the left unzips his front pouch and pulls out one of the most powerful tools that police officers have when they're dealing with a Karen who's called the police for recording in public. The situation has lasted more than an hour, and the police officer makes his way over to the stroller, pulling back the paper on the badges of the stickers that he's going to give to the young children, reinforcing that their mother did the right thing in calling the police when they were being recorded in public. He has fueled the fear and incited the anger, and he's validated for Karen that she did the right thing. He's given the illusion that the police will respond as a matter of public safety when she may really need it. I know, because this could have easily been me 10 years ago.
Excuse me?
Oh, sorry.
Nope, I'm a journalist.
Oh,
Did you know a journalist won the Nobel Peace Prize today?
no.
So I wanted to tell you that right there, you have the power of journalism in your hands.
Oh, cool.
So keep it up, take shots, record everything.
Yeah. Well, what piece?
The job of a journalist is not just to inform the public, but it's to comfort the afflicted and to afflict the comfortable. That's what cop watchers do when they're recording the police. And that's what we do when we're out recording others who are not used to being recorded in public. Because when we have transparency and we can all see what's going on in public, that's when we know that the journalists are doing their jobs, and that's when we know that we're keeping the peace.
Anyway, so keep filming. I'm 57, I'm a grandma, and I filmed the police, and I put it up on YouTube.
Awesome.
Thanks. Hi, sir. I just wanted to ask you a question. Do they get a permit to do this? Is that why you're out here?
In all my years of recording public officials and police, this police officer was perhaps one of the best I've ever interviewed or recorded. He was a pleasant surprise. He was professional, he answered my questions, he was courteous, he was well trained, and he would make any mother or grandmother proud that he wears a uniform and is comfortable in his job.
I appreciate you out here. What's your name?
I'm Officer Kine.
Officer Kine. And are you police or are you?
I'm a peace officer lifeguard in California State Parks.
Wow, you have a lot of skills.
It's a long title.
So you work for the state parks?
Yep.
And then you do these kind of events when they do a permit?
Right.
Because you're lifeguard trained?
Yep.
So you had to get lifeguard certified. You had to go through all that training.
Yep.
Then you went through peace officer training too?
Yep.
So are you licensed to carry a gun? That a guy?
Yep.
Okay. And so do you have a badge number?
Yeah, badge 1664.
So you are licensed with the state, not through highway patrol or anything else?
Through state parks.
Through state parks. Okay, I didn't know that was a whole separate agency. So more public records requests for me.
Exactly.
Okay, great. Thank you. I
Yep.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Right there on that public beach, Officer Kine defined what policing should look like and what we imagine it to be. He didn't escalate because I was recording him. He answered my questions courteously and he provided me information. And he had no problem being transparent and accountable for what he is doing in his job. His truck was left wide open so that I could record his equipment and the tools that he uses for his job. His supervisors could make sure that he was doing the job the way that he is supposed to and that he's following his training, and his colleagues have an opportunity to look at it as well. That didn't seem to bother him. I looked up his pay. He makes $111,000 a year, and that includes with his overtime for working special events. That isn't enough money to buy a house in California, and yet he was one of the most experienced, well-trained, and professional police officers that I have met. This was a swimming event that he was retained to oversee for public safety. That buoy is a Dorito, and the people have to swim around it. They're all ages. They have old-fashioned timekeepers using clipboards and checking with each other. They all know the rules, and they follow the rules. They're recording each other, and nobody was bothered by my recording them. They were happy to be together because last year they weren't able to have their event due to the pandemic. And this year, they were lucky enough to have Officer Kine watching out for them and their children. Not all public employees and contractors are comfortable with recording in public or the transparency and accountability that public employment demands. The woman on the left is Sylvia Perez McDonald. She is the director of the Santa Clara County Independent Defense Office. That means that when the public defender has to assign an attorney and has a conflict in a criminal matter, Sylvia McDonald picks a private attorney to pay instead. The attorney on the right is Dimitri Stadlin. He was an attorney that I hired in my criminal defense case that the district attorney has brought against me for the last 4 years for recording the police in a court file room. Not a courtroom, a court file room. Dimitri Stadlin didn't do a lot of the legal work that he should have done, and I privately paid him. But he is also a contractor for the county, and he filed my federal lawsuit against the police officer who broke my hand. But one day he decided he didn't want to represent me, and he didn't want to honor our flat fee agreement, where he collected $20,000. Instead, he decided to give my federal case and all my criminal file records to Miss McDonald, even though I was suing the county where she worked. This didn't bother any of them at all. And recently, Miss McDonald was appointed to assist me in another matter, and suddenly she started making up rules and policies and procedures that we're going to have to check out. And that all escalated the day after I recorded her on a public sidewalk where she clearly had been meeting with Dimitri Stadlin over lunch because he was still carrying his goodie bag. And as soon as I recorded them and they knew they were being watched, this is what happened next.
I'm a reporter. I'm on the street, just recording people going by. So did you hear about the Russians, Dimitri? Did you hear about the little private judge scam they were doing with some klutz DVROs for the Russian women? You want to talk about private judging, Dimitri? Since now that you've gone from criminal defense to family law?
It probably wasn't a coincidence that I was sitting and interviewing somebody about private judging when Mr. Stadlin walked by. And it's probably not a coincidence that Mr. Stadlin decided to go into family law over criminal, because he certainly learned how much more lucrative it was when he was representing me. My source told me that he had been to the local law library to look up his private judge, and that had never occurred to me. So I headed down to the law library to look up the judges and the private judges, and the law librarian pointed me in the direction of binders full of private judges. So I started to review the private judges to see if any that we had been investigating were contained in those binders. Admittedly, it had never occurred to me to look for binders in the law library of private judges, and there they were, hundreds of private judges, with the associations that they had, the way they ran their courtrooms, the fees that they charged, and everything else that you would need to know about private judging. And yet not a single private judge that is working in Santa Clara County as a private judge was noted in this binder. The binders are prepared by private publishers, and they charge fees, and they give their services to the law libraries and to the judges, where it's circulated in their newspapers and other publications. All of this information was available to find, and yet none of the private judges that we've been investigating for the worst conduct and abuses were contained in these binders, meaning they continued to be secreted when other information about other judges was available. The police officers that we recorded in Capitola, California, provide for the perfect opportunity to better describe private judging, because we could see from those police officers how much money they were paid, what kind of training they had, and how they felt about being recorded in public. We also were able to see how they felt about wasting public resources. Private judging is when attorneys convince their clients to use another attorney to act as a judge in their divorce or custody case. Once you agree to use that attorney, they are given full immunity, as if they were a police officer carrying a gun or a judge who had been elected or appointed to the bench. Public court judges are provided training at taxpayer expense. They also have experience. They are required to give their financial disclosures, and they're required to disclose any conflicts that might prevent them from being fair when they hear a case. Private judges do not have these same obligations, and they make much more money than a public court judge. And so if people are deprived of the information about the cost, the conflicts, and the training of an attorney acting as a judge with full immunity, then people have been deprived of informed consent. And these private judges are acting under the color of law, and they are infecting our courts with corruption, and that's why we continue to investigate the issue of private judging and who's involved in it.
How about private judging? Come on, Dimitri, just give me a soundbite on private judging. You made the jump to family law when you were involved in your own divorce. You don't want to talk about that? About Stuart Scott disclosing that he knew you and worked with you?